Sausage. Yeah. It's got hash browns in it. It's different. Yeah, I would just go ahead and start.
All right, we are having some technical difficulties, so we're going to start a couple minutes later here. Enjoy your steak.
I've got it started, it's just not. Nothing is, the sound is going to be coming through that.
Okay,
So if you
it
wanna,
is what it is.
Yeah, it's.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and start. We're going to keep trying to get back on the stream, but you're here, and we're happy that you're here. So let's all stand up. We're going to start a little more meditative today. I'm going to start with, how could anyone, in honor of pride, and when you're singing this, think of all of your GLBT friends and what they've been through in their lives, and let's just honor them by singing, how could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? Ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How deeply you're connected to my soul. All right, let's do thank you for this day. Spirit, thank you for this day. I want to say thank you. Oh, thank you. I'm so grateful. So grateful. And I want to say thank you for this day. Spirit, thank you for this day. Thank you for this day. Spirit, thank you for this day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. Oh, thank you for this day. Spirit, thank you for this day. Thank you for this day. Spirit, thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. Oh, thank you for my friends. Spirit, thank you for my friends. Thank you for my friends. Spirit, thank you for my friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. Oh, thank you for this day. Spirit, thank you for this day. Thank you for this day. Spirit, thank you for this day. This beautiful, this beautiful. For all my blessings, God gives me everything I need. Let's do love. Love is my source. Love is my power. Love gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings. Love gives me everything. Let's do peace. Peace is my source. Peace is my power. Peace gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings. Peace gives me everything I need. Joy. Joy is my source. Joy is my power. Joy gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings. Joy gives me everything. God gives me everything. God gives me everything. Sing again. God gives me everything I need. God gives me everything I need. That's right. Thank you so much. Please be seated. And it looks like we got a lot of young folks in the crowd today, so you are dismissed to go with this step. Okay.
Because they recognize my immature energy.
You guys should have seen this Pastor Speedy that just left. She was like, talk about being blessed and soul finding. Good morning, Unity of Music City.
Good morning.
Let's begin this portion of our service by taking a deep, centering breath. Today's centering statement is, I am contributing to the flow of good in the universe. In the spiritual dimension, energy is energy. There is no good or bad, right or wrong. It all depends on how we choose our energy. Where will we place our energy within the constraints of our time? How will we use our energy to give of our talents and knowledge? How will we translate the physical treasures that we have received into ways that make our world a better place? The universe operates through dynamic exchange. The energies of giving and receiving operate within all of us and are different aspects of the flow of energy in the universe. Our work is to recognize where we are in our life balance. Are we giving as much as we are receiving? Are we receiving as much as we are giving? In our willingness to give back, we keep the abundance of the universe circulating in our lives and adding to the flow of positive energy on our planet. For some of us, giving is easy and receiving is more difficult. But when we receive from all that life has to offer by graciously accepting the good that comes our way, we are contributing to the greater cycle of love, joy, peace, and abundance in our lives. Of course, this doesn't mean we should give because of what we'll get back. But when we give with a heart full of love and empathy, we provide gifts wherever we go and to whomever we meet. So practicing the law of giving and receiving can be as simple as this. If you want joy, give joy to others. If you want love, learn to give love. If you want attention and appreciation, learn to give appreciation and attention. If you want wealth, help others prosper. Each time we do this, we can make a positive contribution to the divine love that is the source of all good in the universe. And now please repeat these affirming statements after me. I am open to receive all of the good that the universe has for me.
I am open to receive all of the good that the universe has for me.
I have an incredible capacity for living, loving, and giving.
I have an incredible capacity for living, loving, and giving.
I am grateful for the opportunity to give back from the abundance that I have received.
I am grateful for the opportunity to give back from the abundance that I have received.
And so it is.
Some great affirmations. Yes. Take those into your week. And I do notice that Janet puts them on our weekly email. So if you get our weekly email, you can be reminded of those. If you haven't, you need to sign up. You can keep up with what's going on. So I want to say a quick welcome to Unity of Music City. And I want to thank you for being here today with us. And out of all the places that you could be, you have made the sole choice to bring your energy to play with ours. You are a one-of-a-kind wonderful. Everybody say, I'm a one-of-a-kind wonderful.
I am one-of-a-kind wonderful.
And today we are here to celebrate your very presence on the planet. You are loved and appreciated, and we behold the very presence of the divine in you. So thank you for joining us today. I think we've got several announcements for this morning. Julie?
You guys know what's awesome?
What's awesome?
It's only June 11th, and we're not even in the middle of Pride Month yet. Also awesome is being around one-of-a-kind wonderfuls such as yourselves. So,
Aw, right back at you, Julie.
yeah. And Candy and Jackson and Ryan for bringing that one-of-a-kind wonderful music every Sunday. So, thank you. All right, University of Music City. Unity of Music City.
She's visioning. She has a vision.
Unity of Music City will be working with Save Paul through our community outreach. Save Paul helps individuals and pets who are experiencing poverty and homelessness. Contact Sarah Esper for more information. Kids Summer Fun, Tuesdays, June 13th, the 20th, and the 27th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. All ages welcome. This week, June the 13th, is Crazy Kitchen Science.
Wow.
It's gonna be fun.
I think adults can come too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Fire extinguisher on hand, I'm just kidding.
There will be no fire. Maybe.
No thanks. Be fun. Group meditation with Deb Champion, Thursday, June 15th, also this week at 6:30 p.m. Guided and silent meditation sessions available. All levels of experience welcome. Love offering appreciated. So Deb is right here. Crochet group for Centennial NICU, Thursday, June 22nd at 6:30 p.m. here at Ren Road. See Tammy C for more information. Right here today. Anyway, good stuff. Sound Gong Bath with Judy Bernard, Friday, June 23rd from 7 to 8:30 p.m. $30 suggested donation. Awesome. Consciousness of Crystals, Wednesday, June the 28th, 6:30 to 8 o'clock with Frank Castellano. Learn to clear and engage with crystals, clarify your frequency, magnify your intentions, and energize your intuitive vision. $20 love offering. I believe that is all.
Okay, well, you know, that's a lot for 1 month. It's a beautiful month at Unity of Music City. Which brings me to our monthly mantra, which it's a beautiful day. We started this out last week. For those of you who are new, who don't know, our monthly mantra is a song that we do once a month. It's different pretty much every month, and it really exemplifies who we are as a spiritual community, our beliefs, and just this way that we go about our lives here in this spiritual community. And what we're doing this month is It's a Beautiful Day, and it's by India Ari and Robin Roberts. And When you wake up in the morning and get out of bed, start making a mental list in your head of all of the things that you're grateful for. This is a great reminder of how to have a great day. So let's all stand up and remember it. 3, 4. Life is a journey, not a destination. There are no mistakes, just chances we've taken. Lay down your regrets, 'cause all we have is now. Wake up in the morning, get out of bed, start making a little list in my head of all of the things that I'm grateful for. Early in the morning, it's the dawn of a new day, new hopes, new dreams, new ways. Open up my eyes and open up my mind and wonder how life will surprise me today. Early in the morning, it's the dawn of a new day, new hopes, new dreams, new ways. Open up my heart and I'm gonna do my part and make this a positively beautiful day. La, 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 la. It's a beautiful day. Life is a challenge, not a competition. You still smell the roses and be on a mission. Just take a moment to get in touch with your heart. Sometimes you feel like you got something to prove. Remind yourself that there's only one you. Just take a moment to give thanks for who you are. Early in the morning, it's the dawn of a new day, new hopes, new dreams, new ways. I open up my eyes and I open up my mind and I wonder how life will surprise me today. Early in the morning, it's the dawn of a new day, new hopes, new dreams, new ways. I open up my heart and I'm gonna do my part and make this a positively beautiful day. La, 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 la. It's a beautiful day. Let's make this a wonderful day. Let's make this a powerful day. Make this a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day. Life is a journey, not a destination. There are no mistakes, just chances we've taken. Lay down your regrets, 'cause all we have is now. Thank you so much for this.
All we have is now. I love that. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's so wonderful to see you. Before we slide into meditation, slide in. That's what you're going to do, by the way. We're gonna slide.
Ooh, we could do the electric slide.
The electric slide in meditation. Only at Unity of Music City, my friends. Before we slide into meditation, I want to just emphasize a couple of things to you that if you've never had a gong sound bath before, let alone one by Judy Bernard, I highly recommend putting that on your calendar. It's actually, I know our announcement said it's 7 to 8:30. It's actually, she's going to do 2 solid hours, 7 to 9. You would normally pay upwards of $100 for that out in the world. She's doing it for $30. So I really want you to kind of put that on your radar. It's going to be a fantastic night. You might want to bring things that make it comfortable for you to possibly sit on the floor and can sit in a chair if you want to, but some of you might just want to lay out on the floor. And also, the crystals event that Frank is doing is going to be fantastic. Frank knows his stuff about crystals and the energies of the earth, and I think you're really going to get something out of that. So there are a lot of different ways to connect, and those are two really great ones. Ryan mentioned the email that talks about everything we've got going on. If you want to sign up for that, just email unityofmusiccity@gmail.com. Unity of Music City, all one word, @gmail.com. You don't have to remember her name is Janet, but her name is Janet. And all you have to do is say, would you please put me on the email list to receive the weekly What's Happening email? Just put me on your email list. And she'll do that. And every Tuesday, you'll get an email that tells you everything we're doing. So that's enough of the extended announcements. Let's slide into meditation, shall we? I invite you to get comfortable in your chair. Do whatever you need to do to let go of whatever you need to let go of. Lower your shoulders. Let the tongue fall away from the roof of your mouth. Know that you are fully supported. In the internal space that we carry with us everywhere we go. We always have a place of belonging. Even when our life requires that we go into spaces that may not feel very welcoming. Deep within you, around you as your aura, living through you, the animating presence of you is the divine presence, the creative power of this universe. And it is always there. You cannot be separated from God. You cannot be separate from your divine essence. No matter what anyone says. You are the living, breathing essence of the divine here on earth. A beautiful expression of all that is sacred. And we go into the silence. The one simple purpose. To remember that. To commune with our higher self. Our God self. The divine essence. The Holy Spirit. That lives in and through us. We remember together now as the sacred circle of this spiritual community in the silence. In the silence. there is only this divine presence. And whether a plane is flying overhead or we hear the sounds of children laughing, when our cell phone buzzes and disrupts our Zen moment, even in the midst of everything we experience in our day, the silence, the stillness never leaves us. The core of the being is this perfectly still, silent, sacred power. We come here together to remember that with each other, remind each other, encourage each other in the knowing that there is only so.
I am in God. God is in me. My life is God expressing. I am in God. God is in me. All that I am flows to and from God. I am in God. God is in me. My life is God expressing. I am in God. God is in me. All that I am flows to and from God. All that I am flows to and from God.
Well, we have reached the end of the road. No, we'll still be here next week, don't worry. But we've reached the end of the road on our series that we have been spending 6 weeks now in the Reconstructing Spirituality series. If you remember, we started 6 weeks ago with reclaiming prayer. And then we talked about the big question, is there a God? And if you've ever wondered what the answer to that is, it's the second week in May service. Go back and listen to it again. And then we dealt with Jesus, right? The room of our spirituality. He is the massive sectional sofa around which everything else has to fit. And we talked about who Jesus is to us as we go through this deconstruction and reconstruction process. And then we talked about Satan, sin and salvation. Right? All the stuff we got banged over the head with constantly, or I did, growing up. And we talked about, last week, we talked about the Holy Spirit and inspiration. And we have saved the best for last. This may be the most important part of the deconstruction process. I wish I had $1 for every person I've ever known who has gone through the process of deconstruction, who says something like this: I don't have a problem with Jesus. Right? I don't have a problem with Jesus. I got a problem with the church. It's kind of, I've used the phrase before, Gandhi's quote, I love your Christ, I do not like your Christians, right? And so this is the part of it that we really have to deconstruct. It is the church we usually have issues with. It is the church that makes the rules and creates the specific judgments and does the damage. It's the church that's run by individual people who have certain ideas, and when they speak them from a place of authority, it sounds like they've been brought down from the mountain. What an interesting week to be talking about the church and its impact. This week, Pat Robertson passed away. You might have seen that. And if you were watching social media, there were a lot of different reactions to the passing of this very, very public, well-known figure. I can tell you that over the course of my lifetime, I have heard him dispense hate towards a lot of different groups of people. And I was going to share, I put a post on social media that ended up, must have resonated with other people. I think it was, my Facebook post was shared something like 90 times, which means other people resonated with it. And I thought about sharing with you a little bit of what I said, but then I just decided I'm just gonna read it. Just gonna read you what I said because it sums it up for me. Here's my post. It's a little lengthy. From the time I came out almost 40 years ago, Pat Robertson was the enemy. That was his choice. He didn't have to be, but that's what he decided to be. Some folks don't care for the word enemy. The spiritual tribe I hang around with believes in oneness, and so do I. Somewhere on a soul level, Pat Robertson and I came from the same source, and I believe we'll both return to the same place when our time here is through. And somewhere deep within our physical expression, that same divine presence lives always, even when it is completely ignored. But in our physical expression, our personality, our personhood, everything that is not presence, we make choices. And some of us make choices to hate, discriminate, and preach against. Pat Robertson chose to do just that. And he managed to garner enough influence that he convinced countless others to do the same. In this life, he was my enemy by his own choice. He did damage that cannot be quantified. There is no question that some vulnerable someone heard his words and decided to take their own life. There is no question that people I grew up with heard his words and decided it was okay to love me by always thinking of me and treating me as a poor sinner who was confused and wrong and evil. There is no question that he manipulated American politics in ways that deeply damaged our society. I do not mourn him. He said terrible things about the LGBTQ community, about me. He lied. He bore false witness again and again and again. He modeled hate, and that made it okay for so many people that it's impossible to count. The good we do goes out in ripples like the water when a stone is thrown in a pond, but so does the bad. And his ripples traveled far, and he's responsible for the damage done by every one of them. No, I do not mourn him. I mourn those who suffered and died while he called them wicked. I mourn those who lost their lives because they decided to believe him. I mourn those who lost good years of their lives pushing against the part of their own authentic selves that he called sinful. He chose hate. He chose to be the enemy of love. And I do not mourn him. As a minister, you always question what you're putting out into the world. You always stop and think, is this the highest road to take? For me, that was the highest road I could take this week. A lot of people got out there and said, you're kinder than I am. For a long time, as a person who grew up in the LGBTQ community, although not always knowing it, and in the Nazarene church, for a long time, the church was the enemy. That's the way it felt like. And you know, we do sometimes have a problem with that word enemy, but you know me, I'm always going to go back to the definition. One of the besides just being the other side of a war, one of the definitions is a thing that harms or weakens something else. The word enemy comes from the Latin inimicus, and it simply means this: not friend. Not friend. And I mentioned last week, I'm still going through this. I've had a friend of mine that I knew from years ago at Tribeca that I've had to walk away from in the social media world. I've had to just absolutely say, let's just go our separate ways. Because I'm learning more and more the older I get that a friend is not someone who loves you in a passive way. A friend is someone who says, I will stand by your side. I will stand with you. I will stand for you when you're too tired to stand for yourself. I will advocate for you. I will ally with you. Right? And it's not enough for someone to simply say, well, I'll try not to do any harm. So, not friend is sometimes what the church felt like. But as I mentioned last week, the church is an important place in many of our lives. And there are some churches that have tried to repair some of that damage. I also posted these pictures last week. There's several of them. This is just one that I'm sharing here. This is St. John the Divine, the Episcopal Mother Church of the New York Diocese, that is lit up for Pride Month. And there have been a lot of churches that are deciding that it's time to heal some of this damage that has been done. They're open to change. They're open to considering that maybe there's a different way they should approach this. They're open to considering there might be a different way to show the love of Jesus beyond being judgmental and bigoted and exclusionary and downright hateful. They're open to saying, let's examine ourselves and how we've shown up in this social debate. Because there's a lot of damage that needs to be undone. And it seems like every single religious organization in the United States is having to face this question. They can put it off as long as they want to, but they will ultimately have to face this question. The church of my youth, the Nazarene Church, is just now having it brought up in front of them. And I don't know what's going to happen. I don't anticipate that the Church of the Nazarene is going to welcome me back with open arms. And I don't need it to. Right? I go to Unity Music City. So I don't know what's going to happen, but here's what I know, is they cannot avoid the question. And really, the question is this: just how accepting do we want to be? That's really the question. Just how accepting do we want to be? And you know what? It's not just the LGBTQ issue that churches need to heal from. There's a lot of healing that needs to happen. Martin Luther King Jr. once famously said that 11 o'clock on Sunday morning is the most segregated hour in America. The Southern Baptist Church basically became a denomination because the Southern Christians needed apologists for the slavery question. They needed people to defend, from a religious standpoint, the institution of slavery, which seems like a stretch. Seems like that'd be an impossible thing to do, wouldn't it? And then they found a way to do this. There's a survey I ran into recently on church segregation. This is actually published by Lifeway Christian Research, Lifeway Research right there. A lot of you know Lifeway, I think it's Baptist, it's not a Southern Baptist church. And so they asked churchgoers, do you agree with this statement? My church needs to become more ethnically diverse. Notice that when they divide it by race, African Americans have a much greater tendency to say, yes, my church needs to be more ethnically diverse. Hispanic Americans a little less. It's the white folks down there at the bottom who think, no, things are just fine. And if you've ever been to a lot of churches, then you know that Martin Luther King was correct. It's one of the few areas in our society where we can still use the adjectives white and black, right? We can still use those, well, this is a white church. well, this is a black church, right? And so white folks tend to be less in agreement with that statement. When you look at it by age, 18 to 24 and 25 to 34 are almost identical, 50 and 49. The young folks are like, yeah, we need to be more ethnically diverse. And when we get a little bit older, people tend to say no. So the truth is, the problem is, who I see when I look in the mirror, old white people. Right? Those are the folks who tend to be, still to this day, standing in the way of this. I've talked about this a lot for our particular spiritual organization. For those of you who have not met my wife, Nikki, she's in England right now, so I'm going to talk about her a lot today. She's African American, and a lot of times when we moved into this building, we were rebuilding our spiritual community. You all don't know this. I'm going to tell you some things you don't know. I'm going to speak really open to you, but a lot of times I would stand back there in the back, and she travels a lot. She's a singer. She's on the road a lot, singing with different folks. And I would stand there in the back, and I would text her, and I'd go, honey, we have 4 black people here. And she would text me back, she'd go, yay! Right? Because for her, it's one of the things that she misses. It's one of the cultural aspects of Sunday morning that she misses, or what it means for her as a person of color. We've talked a lot, Nikki and I have talked a lot about how you create a spiritual organization that is more diverse. That is one of the burning goals of my heart, is for this community to be more and more diverse every single chance we get. And there are a couple of things I know about how we do that. One thing, I've talked to a lot of African Americans, people I trust, people who I could go to and say, hey, tell me, give me some feedback. I need some, how do we do this? Over and over and over again, the same answer I get back. You have got to have diversity in the people who are seen. You've got to have diversity in your leadership. You've got to have diversity on your stage on Sunday morning. You've got to have diversity. And we want to do that. You know, you can't, the one thing we want to do is do that organically. We're not here to tokenize anybody. We're not here to make anybody a statement. We're here to be the diversity we believe in. Right? We're here to be that in our heart and soul. And so that's one way, is to welcome people of all different ethnicities into our leadership, up on our stage. The other way is this, and it's a question that I'm just starting to explore, but it's something I want our leadership to think about, and that is the difference between being welcoming and making sure people know they belong. You can be welcomed somewhere that you don't belong. I guarantee you, I could walk down to First Nats right now, or a Baptist church, or anywhere, and walk in the door and feel welcomed. They will welcome me. Welcome. Especially if I wear this. They'll go, come on in, honey. We want to talk to you. They're going to welcome me in to convert me. But do I feel like I belong? I won't feel like I belong. And how do we create a spiritual community where as many people as possible, when they walk in there, they don't just feel welcome. They walk in here and say, you know what, I just feel like I belong here. This feels like some kind of home to me. Now, we may not be able to do all of this. There's a fantastic documentary. If you haven't watched this, it's on PBS. It's put out by Henry Louis Gates. It's called The Black Church, This Is Our Story, This Is Our Song. And he does an amazing job of exploring not only the importance of the black church religiously, but also as the center of culture for African Americans. Right? For so many years, the tragic history of African Americans that arose out of slavery, right, and were given very limited opportunities to express culture. For many, many years, the one place that culture could be expressed was in the church. And so it's an important cultural experience. That's something we can never replace here. We can't mimic that. We can't try to. We can only be who we are. There are times, Nikki's she's gonna tell me, why'd you say that? But she's across the pond. There have been times when Nikki said to me, she said, now honey, it might be that some Sunday morning, I just gotta go to a black church. I gotta go with my folks, and I gotta raise my hand. I might have to run an aisle or something like that. Honey, you go ahead, and guess what? I wish I could go with you. I just wish I could go, because there's some part of that cultural experience we can never even begin to replace. But we can try to offer a place where everyone feels welcome. Those are just the big issues that are some of the doorways that often take us to deconstruction from the church. But I ran across a writer this week named Brandon Flannery, who wanted to explore why people were leaving Christianity. You know, the Pew Research does a lot of fantastic reflections on our society, and they did a research study on religion in America, and they found that in 1972, 90% of Americans identified as Christian. By 2020, only 64% of Americans identify as Christian. And so he began to notice that on social media, the hashtags ex-Christian and ex-evangelical were becoming very, very prominent. A lot of people were doing the deconstruction work. They walked away. And so this writer wanted to find out, and he conducted a very well-crafted survey, by the way, and he was actually sharing the results of his survey in BaptistNews.com, is where I found it. He had 1,200 responses from all different types of people, but the only thing they had in common was that they had all left the Christian church of their youth. And he wanted to find out why, and so he asked them, what is your initial reason for leaving? And these were the answers that he got back.
Wow.
Overwhelmingly, number one reason for leaving, LGBTQ issues. Now, that wasn't just LGBTQ people who were responding. It was also, he got a lot of responses. He was clear to note this in his survey results, that he also got a lot of responses from folks who were allies, who were saying, I'm leaving because I can no longer stand the way the church talks about LGBTQ people. I'm leaving because my sister's a member of the LGBTQ community, and I can't, in good faith, go and listen to this any longer. So that was number one, but look at all the other ones. Behavior of believers, right? Intellectual integrity. They could no longer align what they were finding out in their own journey with what was being taught. The faith leadership, education, politics. By the way, he did a second, this was one question, the initial reason for leaving. He also asked, what was your final reason for leaving? What was the straw that broke the camel's back for you? And it was almost identical, except politics moved up to like number 2 or number 3. People were getting sick and tired of the way their church was dealing with political issues. Women's rights, you can look through all of that, scriptural issues, the afterlife, unanswered prayers. It's fine. Hey, I went, I prayed, I didn't get what I want. Screw you, I'm gone. This doesn't work. Doesn't work at all. Purity culture, so you go with civil rights, all the way down through moral misalignment, church, all of these kinds of issues, but overwhelmingly, number one. They left traditional Christianity and they went to a lot of different places. Some of them went to a different Christianity, a lot of them went to Unity or Unitarian Universalists. Some became agnostics or atheists. Some became pagans. Some became, something completely different. Hindu, Buddhist. A lot of folks moved to Buddhism, right? And so he asked them, what did you gain from this new framework?
Wow.
Freedom. Overwhelmingly freedom. If you've hung around here long enough, you've probably heard me say what we really want is freedom. Yes, we want love and joy and peace and alignment and all that, but we want freedom. We want freedom from the worries, freedom from all the stuff we deal with in our life. We want freedom from feeling guilt and shame and all the kinds of things that traditional religion often gave to us. Sometimes when we first start looking, and look down, you can look down through there, love and acceptance, removal of guilt and shame, curiosity, self-acceptance and love, joy and peace. It's interesting that when people wanted love, joy, peace, and freedom, they had to leave the church.
Mm.
Right? In order to get love, joy, peace, and freedom, they felt like they needed to leave the church. The freedom that we gain often first looks like this. And I picked a picture of a labyrinth for 2 reasons. Number one, it's outdoors. Almost everybody I've ever known who leaves the church of their youth spends a little time in the church of the backyard, right? And it is a glorious experience, isn't it? That's part of that freedom. Part of the freedom we feel is freedom from church, right? Part of the freedom we feel is freedom to just be who we are. And it's also freedom to explore different paths. If you've never walked a labyrinth, look for one. It's a really meditative, beautiful experience. There's one at the Pedro Ridge I love to walk. I wish we could put one in the backyard here. Who knows? Maybe we will. Many of us had to completely recreate church for ourselves during the process of deconstruction. I spent 10 years going to the church in my backyard, and finding God in nature is not a bad place to find God. One of my favorite Emily Dickinson poems goes like this. Some keep the Sabbath going to church. I keep it staying at home with a bobolink for a chorister. That's a bobolink right there. And an orchard for a dome. Some keep the Sabbath in surplice. Surplice is the kind of white cotton thing that the priest puts over the black cassock that he wears, right? Some keep the Sabbath in surplice. I just wear my wings. And instead of tolling the bell for church, our little sexton sings. God preaches a noted clergyman, and the sermon is never long. So instead of getting to heaven at last, I'm going all alone. And that is certainly one of the feelings that we have when we first start to step out into nature. This is heaven right here. I'm living in heaven. All of this is great. The church in the backyard is great, but every single one of you found yourself back here at least at some point because we gain this freedom from letting go and deconstructing, but what do we lose? Because we lose something as well. In the same survey, Brandon Flannery not only asked what was gained, he asked people what they missed about their old religious framework.
Mm-hmm.
They missed community. They missed being in community with each other. Overwhelmingly missed community. They miss music and the arts. We all know, if you want good music, you go to church. My mother, to this day, if she goes to a secular concert, she sees a band, I don't care if it's a rock band or a country band or whatever, she'll lean over to me and she'll go, he learned to play piano in church, you can tell. You can tell by the way he plays. So all these little things, free food, that's a free food, all this kind of religious, I miss the religious superiority.
What?
Right? That's down there. I miss the religious. But overwhelmingly, it's this sense of community. And as I mentioned last week, that is one of the reasons I believe we come to church for two reasons, community and inspiration. That's it. And so we go to church, you go to the next slide here, Crystal. We go to church to build this kind of sacred community. We are social creatures. We need to reconnect with people. I think this is evidence of our oneness, this desire to connect with other people. And one of the ways that we build community, besides just coming together, is through ritual. Now, we are not a very ritualistic church, although we have some. Anything you do over and over again is a ritual. We often associate that with more of a high church experience like the Catholics and the Episcopalians. They like their ritual, right? But we have our ritual. We light that flyer every Sunday morning. We light the candle and we dig in a little crystal bowl. And we have certain rituals that we do. I have a story that I tell my students all the time. I think I've told it here, but if I have, just smile and nod and pretend like you're hearing it for the first time, right? So there's a young couple who get married, and the very first Sunday, she makes a roast. She does, not because he's misogynistic, but she's actually a James Beard award-winning chef, and so she's doing it for me, not because she's a woman. At any rate, so she makes the roast, and before she puts it in the oven, she cuts the ends off of both ends of the roast. And her husband says, why did you cut the ends off the roast? And she said, because my mother always did that. He said, okay, well. So next week, they went and saw the mother-in-law, and he says, dear mother-in-law, my favorite person on earth, dear mother-in-law, my wife cut the ends off the roast. She said, you always did it that way. Why did you cut the ends off your roast? She said, my mother always did it that way. So they went and saw Grandma. She's still alive and kicking. She just ran a half marathon. And so they went and saw her. And they said, Grandma, why did you always cut the ends off your roast? And she said, because my pan was too small. And so many of our rituals begin that way. We can't change this. It's sacred. It's holy. This is the way we've always done it. Why did we do it that way? The pan was too small. There was a very, very specific reason why we did it that way, and we just have always done it. When we meet at our full moon, we meet every month. It's one of the things that I wanted to do when we got into this building was to have a full moon ritual, a full moon gathering. And I decided, I've been to some before. I've been to some full moon gatherings with different pagan groups and different other folks I knew. And I've seen folks, call in the four directions, and I can do that too. And I've seen folks, like sing different songs in honor of the earth. That's great. It's wonderful. But I decided pretty early on, I said, you know what, let's let our own ritual organically develop. Because sometimes we reach for ritual a little bit too hard. And sometimes it's kind of like, You've got a ritual. Have you ever done this? Have you ever been in a situation where you've got this ritual that you and your little group does, and all of a sudden there's somebody new who comes in, and you know in your heart of hearts that they're going, what the hell is going on? Right? They're looking around, they're not sure, they don't understand it, they're not connected to it. And so I wanted us to create our own ritual, and what has happened is we organically have created a ritual that we sit around and talk. And that's okay. That is organically what they wanted to come together in community. That is what we do. We sit and we talk. There's a ritual that happens in the high church where they swing incense, right? That's called a thurible, the censer in which they swing the incense. It's used in Catholic and Episcopalian, some Lutheran, some United Methodist, some Presbyterian. If they're kind of high church, they'll use this. My favorite story about this is Tallulah Bankhead, who was an actress from the early part of the 20th century and was known for being quite wild, right? She was a character in and of herself. She's sitting at the very back of an Episcopalian church in New York, probably in the 1920s or 1930s. And here comes the priest swinging the incense. And in a very loud stage whisper, she says, "Darling, your dress is divine, but your purse is on fire." My absolute favorite story about that. But this is something that it's a practice that's rooted in Judaism from the time of the Second Temple, going all the way back to as much as 500 years before Jesus, is how far this goes back. I've seen it used in Buddhist gatherings. I've seen it in every Hindu temple I've gone in. They've got the incense lit. Christianity, Shintoism, Taoism, Islam. If there's any one ritual that ought to happen in our church, it's incense, right? Like that ought to be something that could be a ritual in our church here. There's another ritual that some of us walked away from when we walked away from the religion of our youth. Next slide, Crystal. And that is the ritual of communion. And so this is called a lot of different things. It's called the Eucharist in the Catholic Church, the Lord's Supper. When I was a young Nazarene preacher's daughter, in every Nazarene church there was always a communion table in front of the pulpit, the podium, and it was wooden, it was heavy, had engraved on the front, "Do this in remembrance of me." We didn't do communion very often. The Catholics did it every Sunday, right? We did it every once in a while, whenever the preacher kind of thought about it, I think. But at any rate, that table was always there. And so we're going to take communion today, but we're going to do it in our own kind of way. This is not necessarily a ritual that we're going to begin, but it is something that we're going to join in together today. I've got my 4 little acolytes here that I've asked to help. They're going to pass out a cracker and some juice to each of you. Ryan's going to play. And we'll start at the front here, Annette. Start at the front with that, and make sure Ryan and I get one of those. Ryan's going to start playing. If you'll hold on to these, it's ceremonial, so don't eat away. If you're feeling hungry, that's not enough to tide you over.
Last packet.
Jello shots for pride.
If any church was going to have Jello shots, it would be this
We'll
one.
do this one.
Thank you, darling.
How many people are online?
4 is about how many we've had.
Here, you want to put that? The juice is just cranberry.
Oh, thank you, darling.
This community is a sacred circle. We are all a part of the same divine oneness. We join together in spiritual evolution and growth that is both uniquely personal and joyfully shared. We encourage one another. We hold the space for one another. We care about one another. Consider the bread. What an important symbol of life, the physical life we live. It reminds us that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Though we are connected in oneness, some of the best reminders of that oneness are physical expressions. A hug, a smile, a shoulder to lean on. Sometimes our physical existence is beautiful and sometimes it is challenging. Our material life is the classroom, the conduit through which we can remember and access our spiritual nature, and we do not diminish it. We celebrate it and express gratitude for this life. Let this bread be a symbol of the importance of your humanity. Take and eat in honor of the physical expression you are on this planet. Consider the juice. What an important symbol of spirit. Our very lifeblood, that which lives within us, unseen by our physical eyes, but vital for our existence. This is where our oneness lives. The entirety of our spiritual journey is spent remembering the divinity that exists within us. Every song we sing, every word we speak, every ritual we may perform are offered in the service of spiritual awakening. We are a spiritual community built on love, inclusion, and freedom. We are a part of a sacred circle of community. Take and drink in honor of the oneness of divine presence of which you are a part. You have not been inducted into a cult. You are still as free as you were a few moments ago. I went to an Episcopal church one time and they offered communion, and so I just went up and got it because I was thirsty. I didn't know until afterwards that you were supposed to be an Episcopalian. You were supposed to be part of the club. There's no part of the club here. You're part of the club because you are breathing. You don't have to be a member. You don't have to take some holy vow. You don't have to declare some profession of faith. You just have to be a spiritual being having a human experience. And we are so, so grateful that you are part of this spiritual community. You feed me every day. I learn from you every week. And it is the joy of my life to serve this community as minister. Namaste.
Namaste.
Convenient me being up here and have to walk up or think of what I'm going to say. Because we always slip into gratitude at this point in the service. And that is a ritual that I am grateful for. So what are we grateful for today? I am grateful for the places that we are able to give back to. The places that we come into, the places that we support places in our community where we know we are loved and accepted. And those are the places that we support as a spiritual community. We have a great new partnership with St. Paul's, and I encourage you to look into that organization. They are in our community, and they do a lot of great things for people and their pets. And where would we be without our pets, right? It's so important for people who are not at maybe the best place in their life to be able to have support for themselves and their pets also. So we want to support them. And every time you drive into this parking lot and you park your car and you come into this building or walk around the property, that's an organization that you're supporting also. So whenever you give of your tithes and offerings, you're supporting the places, whether it be our church home or the places that our church home supports. That's a portion of your money is going for that also. So we are grateful for that. You can see the ways to give back, and you know the blue base there for anybody that's new is for paper money. You can do a PayPal, and let's give back by saying our offertory affirmation. Together,
Divine love flowing through me, blesses and multiplies all that I choose to give and all that I am open to receive.
We are grateful to receive it. Let's say I am grateful. I am grateful for another day of living. Grateful for a new chance to forgive. Grateful to receive life's many blessings. And I'm grateful for the love I have to give. I am grateful for another day of living. Grateful for a new chance to forgive. Grateful to receive life's many blessings. And I'm grateful for the love I have to give. And I'm grateful for the love I have to give. All right, well, it's time to end our service, and let's all stand up, and let's all say a prayer for protection together as we prepare to go back into the world. The light of
God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. All around the neighborhood, I'm gonna let it shine. All around the neighborhood, I'm gonna let it shine. All around the neighborhood, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine,
Thanks for coming, everyone. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us online. Have a great week, everyone.